Hello again. This is Victor James, author of the Megacosm, and I wanted to talk about this Fan of Pulse article that came out about Brandon Sanderson the other day. So in this article, he talked about an IP that got picked up by Hollywood, and there's just an interesting story tied to this. So down here, about the middle of the article, he has this to say: I have a funny story here. Early in my career, someone optioned the rights to make one of my stories, The Emperor's Soul, into a film. I was ecstatic, and it's not a story that at the time had gotten a lot of attention from Hollywood. I met with a writer who had a good pedigree and who seemed extremely excited about the project. Turned out he'd been the one to persuade the production company to go for the option. All seemed really promising. A year or so later, I read his script and it was one of the most bizarre experiences of my life. The characters' names were largely the same, though nothing that happened to them was remotely similar to the story. And For a Soul is a small scale character drama that takes place largely in one room, with discussions of the nature of art between two characters who approach the idea differently. The screenplay detailed an expansive fantasy epic with a new love interest for the main character, a pirate captain. They globetrotted, they fought monsters, they explored a world largely unrelated to mine, save for a few words here and there. And it was then that I realized what was going on. So I'll end it right there because that's just a crazy story that somebody would do that to a Brandon Sanderson story. I mean, he's a great writer on his own, so he doesn't really need any fluff or someone else to come in and try to make it their own. But this is not the first time I've heard this. George R. R. Martin kind of recently came up and said the same thing. And he said this down here: everywhere you look, there are more screenwriters and producers eager to take great stories and make them their own, Martin wrote. No matter how major a writer it is, no matter how great the book, there always seems to be someone on hand who thinks he can do better, eager to take the story and improve upon it. He continued, the book is the book. The film is the film, they would tell you, as if they were saying something profound. And then they make up the story their own. They never make it better, though. 999 times out of 1,000, they make it worse. I mean, that's a scathing review on current Hollywood. Current Hollywood and the producers and directors they have in there. There's just a severe lack of talent who can't seem to adapt stories right, or they try to take stories and make them their own, which makes them worse. But that hasn't always been the case. If you go here, best 50 books adapted from the best 50 movies adapted from books of all time, ranked by fans. So you can see here, there's a whole bunch of books. A lot of Stephen King, actually, because people are just really good at adapting his movies, especially Frank Darabont. Just one of my favorite directors. You see his name on here a lot. He's just really good at adapting Stephen King movies. But as you can see, there's a whole bunch of movies on here that were originally books that most people probably don't even, or some people probably don't even know were books. Like Stand By Me, of course. Jurassic Park, of course, was a great book. Princess Bride. A lot of people don't know that Princess Bride was actually based on a book. And then there's Mary Poppins, everybody knows. I didn't know Shrek was based on a book. I honestly didn't know that. I didn't know Jaws was based on a book. And then there's Forrest Gump. Didn't know that was based on a book either. Of course, you got Misery, Willy Wonka, Psycho, Goodfellas. But there's actually Die Hard. That's another one. Most people don't know that's based on a book. But there's actually one book down here that surprised me because I didn't know at all. This was a total shock to me, and I thought it was funny. If you go all the way down here to 33, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? No idea that was a book before the movie. But I love that movie, so that's pretty awesome that it was adapted from a book. So Hollywood could do faithful adaptations, but it's just recently that they seem to not be able to, or unable to, or unwilling to. And we see that's just not working. So with Star Trek, this is not the same Star Trek that we watched growing up. These are just, it's just like a skin suit. The writers and directors are using the names and they're trying to put their own stories on there. So these TV shows for Star Trek from Paramount, they just come and they go. They come for 2 or 3 seasons, they get canceled. Nobody watches them. They're losing money. They're not making any rankings on the Nielsen charts or any charts at all. So nobody's watching these movies or these TV shows that people are just adapting. And we know what happened to Star Wars. Star Wars used to be the biggest franchise in the world. And now when I hear Andor Season 2 was one of the greatest Star Wars of recent time, nobody watched it. I didn't watch it because what's the point? It all leads to Rey. So there's no point in watching a TV show or a movie that's going to be this bad. So writers have just wrote this into the ground, actually. They just took everything they can out of it and they're just writing it into the mud. And there's going to be some good stuff here and there, but are people going to watch it? Are people going to read it? So this hasn't always been the case. And Brandon Sanderson has a reason why. So you go back to his article, he says this: Hollywood doesn't buy spec scripts, which are original ideas from screenwriters very often, and they never buy spec scripts that are epic fantasy. They are too big, too expensive, and too daunting. They are the sort of stories where the producers and executives need the proof of an established book series to justify the productions. So this writer never had a chance to tell his own epic story. He's talking about the writer who optioned his Emperor's Soul that he wanted to. Instead, he found a popular story that nobody had snatched up and then used it as a means to tell a story he always wanted to tell because he never had otherwise had a chance of getting it made. And that's fascinating. Like, just Hollywood is so scared of taking a chance on original IP that they're willing to just drag these tent poles into the mud. And now they're not going to have anything, no tent poles to hang their hats on. And again, this has not always been the case. So if you go to this article here, the greatest sci-fi movies not based on books, you can see, like, George Lucas created Star Wars from his own mind. James Cameron created Avatar. Donnie Darko was a good movie. It didn't spawn a franchise, but it was a good movie, and it has a cult following. I've never seen that movie. Christopher Nolan's Inception, of course, great movie. The Matrix, fantastic movie, created by the Trotsky brothers. And then there's The Fifth Element. As you can see, this just goes on and on. Dark City, that's just a fantastic movie. Again, it didn't spawn a franchise. It was kind of hit. It kind of didn't make. It was a kind of a flop when it came out. But people are starting to realize how good a movie this is. There's an article on Bleeding Fool about this movie that you should go and read because people are starting to realize how good Dark City was. It just got caught up in Matrix fatigue, where anybody thought that was anything with that kind of setting and a color tone was a Matrix ripoff. And this movie was not a Matrix ripoff. And Aliens, of course, that's another original franchise. They have District 9 on here on number 1. I think that's total garbage. So this list kind of sucks. And it doesn't have Terminator on there, which is probably the most popular franchise as far as original. Like, this is the James Cameron original. He came up with it from his own mind. So as we see, Hollywood knew at one time how to faithfully adapt books, but now they kind of don't. They take these stories, they use them as skin suits, but they're just ruining them because they think they can tell their own stories through somebody else's vision. And as we see, that just doesn't work. Wheel of Time canceled after 3 seasons. Star Trek Section 31, probably the worst Star Trek ever made, honestly, to this point. Doctor Who, that's a franchise. I never got into Doctor Who, but I have some friends who are really into it. And it probably will never recover. It might not ever recover from what Disney and BBC has done to this franchise. I mean, it's just getting to historic lows and people just don't care anymore. And I think the difference is just the lack of talent. If you go back to that list of the top 10 movies, this is James Cameron, Ridley Scott, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, the Wachowski brothers before they went nuts. These are people with actual talent who could tell their original stories. Get Christopher Nolan, you can get the Hollywood producers to get on board just off their name. They know they're talented. They know they have the cachet to bring in $1 billion. But no directors or actors even have that no more. The age of stars are dead. Nobody goes to see a movie because of a star anymore, or the director behind it. When I was growing up, if it was a George Lucas movie or a Spielberg movie, you were going. You knew it was going to be good, sight unseen. You didn't have to see 10 trailers to get hyped up. You just knew it was going to be good. But what director can do that now? These guys are aging. James Cameron, he's still making Avatar, but for how much longer? Ridley Scott's in his 80s. These guys are aging out, and there's no big name talent to take their place. Everybody thought the doofus who made oh wait, no, that's not. I was thinking of someone else. District 9 was not made by him, but I can't even remember his name. But he made the Star Wars movies. He made the Star Wars movies, and everybody thought he was going to be the next guy. And all he does is copy off other people, especially Spielberg, and he sucks. So what I'm trying to say is that just expect more of this. Like, you can expect more fantasy stories that you like and sci-fi stories that you like to get picked up by name and probably not faithfully adapted because talent is just lacking in Hollywood. But that's all I had to say about this. So here's my book, Fiasco of Adventures. There's only 3 left, so get on board. There's also a digital version available. I don't ever expect to see this into a movie. I kind of don't want it to be a movie. If I could just get by on people reading my stories, maybe see my own t-shirt out in the streets, maybe some toys here and there, maybe in the future, that'd be awesome. But I don't expect this to be a book, but You never know. Here's my website, themegacosm.com. Here you can read some short stories I have up here for free, and I'll also have a link to my articles that I write for Bleeding Full. You can also order my book straight from the website. That's all I wanted to say about this. God bless you and keep you. That's it, I'm done.